Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Good Grief, Life After Loss. My name is Skylar, and I am so glad you are here today. I am currently filming this on Sunday, January 25th, which is the start of a 48-hour snowstorm freeze, whatever we're going to call it, in Boston, in most of the Northeast, and I think about half of the country. So, if you are listening to this on Thursday, I hope you stayed warm. And also, please forgive the hissing radiator noise that you will definitely hear throughout this recording, as my very old brownstone building in Boston is working overtime trying to keep the heat on during this storm. So please forgive that noise in advance. Anyways, before we dive into today's episode, something has kind of been on my mind for the past few days, and I just wanted to bring it up to you guys and talk through a real-time grief scenario. So, as some of you may know, the X Games recently happened, all of the trials for the Winter Olympics recently happened, and I have just been seeing so many posts and videos of a lot of people that Sam was friends with competing to get to the Olympics, to win the X Games. And it's been really cool to see, but I've also had this weird moment where I find myself scrolling through these videos and subconsciously wondering, like, when is Sam's video going to pop up? And it's crazy that even 10 years after losing Sam, I still get lost in these moments and forget that he is not part of them. And I hate that I also can't help but wonder, like, would Sam be competing for the Olympics if he was alive? And in my mind, the answer is yes, because he was freaking amazing. And I just hate the part of not knowing what would have been, who he would have been, how incredible of a skier he would have become, and seeing all of these people that he grew up skiing with getting these brand deals and competing all over the world, and it's amazing for them, but it's also heartbreaking to just, to never know what would have been. Anyways, that has nothing to do with the theme of today's episode, but I felt like it was relevant, and wanted to voice it to someone. But with all that being said, let's get into today's episode, because today we are talking about something that might make you laugh, and then immediately make you feel like, wait, am I allowed to laugh at that? Was that wrong? Because today's episode is all about dark humor and grief. And no, my plan for this episode is not to tell a bunch of morbid jokes, although honestly, that would be pretty on brand for some of the people listening to this podcast, I'm sure. But that is not the plan for today. So kind of to set the scene of what got me thinking on this episode theme is that I recently met a new friend. Cue dramatic applause and confetti, because anyone in their mid-20s, I hope, also relates to the fact that it feels so hard to meet new friends in your 20s. So I made a new friend, and it was really exciting. And we recently got together, a group of us girls, and throughout the night of hanging out, I learned that this new friend had lost her dad a few years ago. And at one point, she made a casual joke about it, and I couldn't tell if I maybe misheard her, and then later she made another joke about it, and then I found myself genuinely laughing at the joke, and not because I was uncomfortable, not like oh God, is it wrong that I'm laughing at this? Just laughing and almost enjoying the skill it took to make that joke and not make it uncomfortable. And honestly, what surprised me about all of it was not her humor, it was how much I loved and appreciated the joke that she so casually brought into the conversation, like, oh, of course, that was before my dad died. But anyways, and just kept going. And there was something really freeing about it. There was no tiptoeing, no lowering voices, no sadness, no, like, me feeling like I had to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. It was just honesty and a good joke. And it made me think, like, why does dark humor feel like oxygen to some people in grief, and then to others it feels absolutely horrifying and kills the energy of the room? And also, something else I want to explore in this episode is, why is it that I use humor for literally everything in my life, except when I talk about losing my brother? It's weird. So let's get into that. Now, before we go any further, I do want to say this clearly. If dark humor is not your thing, if it feels wrong or disrespectful or painful, I think that is completely fine. And on the other end, if dark humor is totally your thing, if that's how you survive, and that's the only way you know how to talk about the person you lost, I also think that's totally acceptable. This episode is in no way about picking sides. It's kind of just about understanding and exploring why we are all so different when it comes to humor related to grief. Okay, now a little quick psychology moment, but I do promise I will keep this casual. My research has only gone so far, so I won't be using any medical terms. But dark humor, I don't think anyone's shocked by this, is actually considered a coping mechanism. Psychologists have even called dark humor a mature defense mechanism, which sounds like a compliment if you ask me. And the basics of that is that humor helps us, one, create a little emotional distance from pain, regain control with something that feels unfair and chaotic, and say the unsayable without having to fully fall apart after delivering the news. Like, sometimes laughing is the only way to touch on grief without drowning in it and without feeling the weight of it. It's like saying, yes, this awful thing did happen, but I'm still here and I'm still living. And for some people, humor is the safest way to tell the truth, to deliver the news. And honestly, I get it, because I know the fear of when someone asks me, do you have any siblings? I know that 99% of the time, if I decide to be honest with them and say, oh, I did, but my brother passed away in a ski accident, I know that this person is going to become super uncomfortable. They're not going to know what to do, and then they're just going to say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And then we're going to sit there in silence before someone thinks of something else to talk about. And the build up to that, even that microsecond that you have alone in your mind before deciding what to say or waiting for the person to respond, like, that is unbearable and so uncomfortable. And so I totally understand, like, how about I get a little emotional distance from this pain and just make a joke about it so it doesn't make me uncomfortable and the other person doesn't have to feel uncomfortable. Unless, of course, dark humor makes them uncomfortable, and then never mind. But I have so much respect for people who just fully lean into dark humor. In my opinion, when someone loves using dark humor to get through their grief, I feel like either they just don't want to be treated like they're fragile, they don't want those sad looks, they don't want people to pity them and say they're sorry. They just want to feel normal again, even for a second, and to make a joke about it and to be sarcastic sometimes feels like the only way to get through it. I feel like people who love using dark humor probably grew up in families where joking was a sign of love. Like, I think we've all been around those people where you make a sarcastic joke and they don't pick up on it, they don't appreciate it, and it's super awkward. But we've also been around those people who make the best sarcastic comments ever and you're constantly laughing around them. And I feel like that's just the difference of how you grew up. And if you grew up in a family where joking and sarcasm and making light of things is common, like, of course you're gonna let dark humor take the lead in the conversation when you have to talk about sad things. I also think dark humor can just be a secret language between grievers. Because when that joke lands, if it lands, it says, you get it and you're not afraid of this with me. And honestly, that is how I felt when I was with this new friend and she made a joke about her dead dad. Like, there was no awkwardness, there was no pressure to perform sadness, it was just real connection. And I have come to appreciate that so much because I feel like as someone who has experienced loss, I am expected, maybe not by others, but internally, I expect that I know the exact way to respond to a situation where someone tells me someone they love has died. And I really don't. As much as I criticize how other people respond to it, I have no idea how to respond to that. Even yesterday, Harrison and I were touring an apartment and the broker was explaining that she had just been on like a month-long leave and was getting caught up, and my mind was like, oh, where'd you go on vacation? And she explained that first she was in a car accident and then she was on a week of bereavement leave because she had a family emergency. And I literally had no words to respond. Like, I actually don't think I responded. I just said, And as a griever, that feels so wrong, but I almost felt like me saying, oh, I'm so sorry, or I don't even know what else I would have said, but it felt wrong to say that because it would have made her uncomfortable. I don't know, guys. And it's a time like that where maybe I would have appreciated dark humor. Maybe would have loved if she was like, yeah, it was pretty upsetting, like, my uncle died, but work comes first, so back here again. Like, I don't know, but I wish she had made a joke, because I honestly felt uncomfortable that there was no joke. There was just sadness and silence, and it was weird, and then we got in an elevator for a very slow ride back down to the first floor. Okay, now let's shift gears a little, because I want to talk about why dark humor does make probably a lot of people deeply uncomfortable. And I think that happens for a few reasons. I mean, one, it very much clashes with how we are taught to, air quotes, respect the dead. I think we are all taught at some point, whether through our parents or through movies or just being with others, that the only way to talk about people who have died is in a respectful manner. You're not supposed to joke about it or make light of it or talk negatively about it. You're only supposed to speak with the utmost respect of those who have died. Also, and understandably, hearing someone use dark humor can sound like they are minimizing the loss, even when it's not. But I feel like when you use dark humor to talk about someone dying, it takes away the weight of the situation a little, and so it feels less intense and sad and painful. And I think that's totally fine, but to some, maybe they're like, hey, a person you loved deeply died. Why are we trying to pretend like that isn't a big deal? Which I don't necessarily relate with those people. But lastly, I think for some grievers, they don't like using dark humor because people are afraid that if they joke about it, it means it didn't matter, or their person didn't matter, or they weren't affected by the loss. And I think that's maybe the one I relate to the most. And I get it. I mean, if you lost one of the most important people in your life, it does feel a little weird to joke about it, when the reality is you were absolutely broken and crushed during that time period and probably still are over the loss. In conclusion, for non-grievers, dark humor can feel shocking and can feel uncomfortable. And for some grievers, it can feel like betrayal. It can feel wrong. Like, if I laugh, am I letting go? Is it disrespectful? And I don't know what the answer is to that. But here's the thing I have been sitting with that I don't know, I've been psychoanalyzing myself for the past few days as I planned for this episode. Because in my life, I use humor for almost everything. For stress, anxiety, awkwardness, pain. I mean, even recently, I was talking to my boss at work. I am in HR, for those of you who didn't know, and I made a comment to her of like, I don't know what I'm gonna do when eventually, it's inevitable, I probably one day am going to have to fire someone, and I laugh when I am uncomfortable and feel awkward. And we were just like, how am I gonna fire someone when I'm laughing through the awkwardness? Like, that's not gonna work. But what's weird is when it comes to Sam, I don't joke at all. I don't make those like, well, he's dead jokes, or like, oh, but too bad he isn't here. Like, I don't make those jokes. I don't use sarcasm. I don't go there. And I find that weird, but I've realized it's not because I can't joke about it. I think it's because Sam lives in a place in my heart that still feels so sacred. And I remember that time in my life as still feeling so sad and painful and unbearable. And I don't know, I feel like humor, if I were to use dark humor, it would create distance. And with Sam, I don't want distance. And I think there's part of me that worries that if I joke about it, the world will be casual about his absence and they'll feel like they can joke about it too. And I am not ready for that. And it doesn't mean that I never laugh about Sam. I do, but not about his death. I laugh and joke about who Sam was, but never about what happened to him. I don't know. I guess I can take that as just that my relationship with his memory has its own language, and that language doesn't involve dark humor. But it's odd because Sam was the funniest person I know. Sam loved to make jokes about everything. He loved dark humor, and there's definitely parts of me that wishes I could tell people about losing Sam and just insert a funny joke there. and make the conversation feel lighter so they don't feel like they have to look at me with pity eyes and say they're so sorry. But for some reason, I am not capable of that, and I don't know if it will ever change. But to the people who do use dark humor, I'm a little bit jealous of that ability. And I don't think that means you love any less or care any less. I just think it's something that some of us have and some of us don't. And this is the part that I really want my listeners to hear, is that there is obviously no universally correct way to grieve. Some people cry, some people joke, some people do both, and sometimes in the same sentence at the same time. I do not think dark humor is disrespectful, and I don't think avoiding humor is a weakness either. I think it's just a matter of choice. And as grievers, we don't get a choice in much, but we do get a choice in deciding how we want to talk about our loss, who we want to joke with, when we want to joke, and when we do not want to make light of the situation. So if you're someone who uses dark humor, here is my gentle advice. First off, save it for the people who have earned that access, that privilege, and don't apologize for coping. I guess just be aware of it. And if dark humor makes you uncomfortable, you don't have to laugh, you don't have to explain yourself, you don't have to make jokes. You're allowed to grieve in silence, in softness, in seriousness. I believe both can exist, and it really is fully up to you. I think grief has already taken so much from all of us, and if humor gives someone a little piece of themselves back, even briefly, that is all that matters. And if keeping things serious feels like the most loving way to remember someone, that's valid too. So whether you cope with jokes, tears, silence, or all three at the same time, you are doing grief your way, and that is the right way. So, thank you to all of my listeners for being here. If this episode resonated with you, you know where to find me. Please leave a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening, and send this to a friend who maybe loves dark humor or one who hates it. Up to you. As always, be gentle with yourselves, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.